Let's actually shift the conversation that way into the work that you're doing in the pregnant and postpartum space. Starting with the research before we even get into pelvic floor stuff, which I know is like probably why everyone tuned into this episode. But the research of lifting heavy while pregnant was like the number one thing that I was missing when I was pregnant. And if you guys go back and listen to any episodes after I told John that I was pregnant, it was like I was furious. I was fuming. I was confused. I was pissed. I was like, why can't there just be someone to tell me that I can do this without being like one person in my OB's office said, don't lift more than 25 pounds. And then my OB, who was very knowledgeable at the time, was like, you could probably lift about 75, 80% or do about 75, 80% of what you're doing on a daily basis and be fine because you're used to this. And I was like, cool. And then I would look up pregnancy training programs and they'd all be like, you should pull back and probably not. And I'm like, someone just tell me what the fuck to do. I'm pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, the reason why is because there hasn't been a research study up until the last 2 or
Exactly.
3 years that have been over that weight. We have now 2 studies that have been done on Valsalva and baby, showing that women who kind of brace or hold their breath with lifting are not putting baby at risk. So we have those 2 studies, but they went up to a max of 50 pounds, and it wasn't in standing. It was in lying down. It was an incline bench press of all things. It was just easier for them to put the probes and things on to look at what their bodies were doing. And I know that there is research right now on Valsalva in the resistance training space during pregnancy to try and work on the squat and all that, those types of things. So those are coming. The reason why, so what our study design was a survey. So we took 679 individuals. That was how many people agreed to be in the study. And they had to have been lifting more than 80% of their 1 rep max at least once during their pregnancy. And then we said, tell us what happened. Did you lift on your back? Did you hold your breath when you were lifting? Did you lift over your head? Did you do all of these things? When did you start to modify? Then what were your birth outcomes? Were you more likely to have issues with your blood pressure, issues with C-section? Were you more likely to have to use an instrument to deliver vaginally? And then when did you start coming back to these things postpartum? It's important to know that this is cross-sectional, and so there we have to now take pregnant people and follow them forward to increase the strength of the evidence, but it was a start to say, just like all of us know in CrossFit gyms, people are doing this anyway, and we need to do more research on it. That was the big kind of goal of this survey. And what we saw was that individuals who lifted heavy during pregnancy compared to national averages had lower incidence of C-section. I kind of have an asterisk on that with some of our high level athletes. I'm seeing higher incidence of C-section, but we can kind of talk about that. Those who were lifting heavy, they didn't have as many issues with their blood sugar. So they didn't have as much gestational diabetes. There wasn't as much hypertension. So gestational hypertension or preeclampsia, which Tori Bowie, the Olympic track athlete who was Black that just passed away at 8 months pregnant, she struggled with eclampsia, they think, and that was the complication. And Elise, who is on her team, also almost died of preeclampsia. So there's a lot of equity issues that are coming into that space. But in our study with resistance training, we saw lower incidences of those things. Interestingly, too, and this was like a bias check for me, was that individuals who held their breath to brace and those that didn't, there wasn't a difference in terms of rates of pelvic floor issues after baby. And again, we have a lot that we need to do to figure it out. And there's a lot of ideas around that, but definitely was a bias check for me because I tended to say, well, let's like not hold your breath and let's make a change to your breath strategy during pregnancy. And now I've said, you can do what works better for you. If this feels better for your body, here's options for you. And again, moving away from that fear messaging. And just kind of lastly on this, I can go on about this study all the time, but a lot of people are thinking your pelvic floor and your abs are under a lot of strain during pregnancy. So let's not strain them more. I disagree with that. Where I think if we are putting a area of the body under load, it has to be even more resilient. So how do we keep it strong in a way that is setting our clients up for success and taking into account where they are within their pregnancy, within their life, and try to really allow them to be as strong as possible. And what we're seeing for things like having a gap in our abs, like that diastasis recti, which is a very fear invoking for a lot of people, is that all of Rita Deering's research is saying that it's those who have diastasis recti postpartum are weaker than those that don't. And in that postpartum period. So there's just a lot that's starting to be thankfully challenged, which is super exciting. And my little study was one step. And now I'm working on a systematic review on what the state of the research is on resistance training in pregnancy, with the idea of going to taking individuals before they get pregnant, get them through their pregnancy, asking questions about if they're experiencing pelvic floor issues, how they're modifying, and then looking at their labor and delivery over time. But that's going to take me 3 to 5 years. So
Oh
in
my god.
2028, get me back on the podcast. I'll be able to update you.